Continuing with our study of or examination of GRE quant topics, this video I want to talk a little bit about as a review of ratios. Okay, so I'm going to give kind of the brief breakdown of what they are, how we handle them, and then I've got example problems for each kind of the common categories the GRE is going to quiz you on are, I would say, standard ratio questions. Then the second possibility is algebraic ones. Then a mismatch. Explain all these in a minute. Mismatch. And then the final one would be changing ratios. Okay, these would be really the top categories for ratios. Obviously, the most common one would be this one, but then you want to be comfortable with the other categories as well. So let's do a quick review. All right, the idea for a ratio is like a fraction, very similarly, but it is comparing a part to a part. So first off, let's just break down the idea of a fraction for a minute, because these two are very closely intertwined. So fraction just means, the way that we write it, for example, if I have, 2 over 4, let's say, if that's my fraction. Well, what that's telling me is that the total number of objects that we have that we're that we're counting would be on the bottom, the denominator, right? The top part is the part of the whole that we are interested in. Okay. Now a ratio, if a ratio is written, say if I say the ratio is 2 to 4, it looks exactly the same as a fraction, but now we're measuring something different. We are comparing the size of two parts. So in this case, this would be a part that I'm interested in here, and this is another part as well, and I'm comparing the relative sizes of those parts. What's conspicuously missing from this with a ratio is a total. I don't know exactly how many things I have. I just know that, if I'm saying there's 2 dogs for every 4 cats, yikes. If that's what I'm saying, is that I don't know exactly how many dogs there are, and I don't know how many cats there are, but what I do know is that they're going to be organized in this way, that for every 2, there are 4 cats. So essentially, there are double the number of cats as dogs. Now, it could mean that means I've got 20 dogs and 40 cats. It could be 200 dogs, 400 cats. I don't know. So that's very important. Ratio is just showing you what the relative size of each part is compared to each other, but it does not show you a total. Now, the way that we handle a ratio question, this is what you just default mode, this is what you should be doing. Let me clear up a little space here for a second. Cut that out. Is you should immediately list a couple of columns whenever you're given a, let's say, for example, let's just say I had something like this. Here would be sort of actually, well, we're going to jump to a standard question in a minute. But what you do is you want to make 2 columns. So I'm going to just saw it says column A and column B. Actually, to be a little more efficient here, I'm going to call this my ratio column. You don't have to write this out on the actual GRE, but you should be thinking about this. And this would be my number, my actual number column. Okay? Now, here's how this works. Let's go back to the cats and the dogs for a minute. What you do is you're going to write down, first off, what are the parts that we're comparing to each other. In this case, it's dogs and cats. So I'm going to put dogs, so D for dog, C for cat, and then very importantly, even though this was not mentioned here, you want to have a third thing in your column. You want to have the total. And this is where we just put down what our ratios are. Okay? Well, the ratio was 2 dogs for every 4 cats. So I'll put 2 dogs for every 4 cats, and the total is just going to be adding up those ratios. So out of 6. So think about it like this. What I'm saying by adding this total is that if I had 6 animals in all, I know that 2 of them are dogs and 4 of them are cats. Okay? Just, bear with me on that one. All right. And then, depending on what the question is, we're going to have to be given some sort of actual number. In this column right here, it's going to be, what is the question? What are we trying to find out? And suppose, just for the sake of it, I'm asking you, how many dogs were there? Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, so I'm going to just be all original and put a little x for my variable, right? I can't figure this out unless I have given some other number, right? And supposing I told you there were a total of, I don't know, 60 animals in all. Okay, let's just say that that's what I was told. All right, boom. I have a number. I want to attach it to whichever row it fits with. In this case, if I'm giving you the total number of animals, well, that would naturally fit with this total. Okay, now, and so stage 1 is fill out your ratios. Stage 2, including the total. Stage 2 is pop in whatever numbers, figure out what it is that they're asking you to find out. In this case, in my hypothetical question, it was the number of dogs. And then what number was I given? Plug that in its appropriate slot. And then the third step is going to be cross multiply. We weren't given anything for cats, so we can just kind of ignore that column, well, that row, I should say, right there. But I do have 2 and 60, x and 6, cross multiplication. I think you can kind of see from your, just looking at this that the answer is going to be 20 dogs, but, just bear it. Sometimes the numbers are not quite so easy, so this is a good method to do. So cross multiplication, just a quick review, would be take the upper corner number, multiply it by the lower corner number. So these two, almost like butterflies, right? Making little butterfly wings. Multiply these two numbers together. So that's 2 times 60, that's 120. And that will be equal to the other two things multiplied together. Okay? So that's 6x. So it's 120 is equal to 6x. We can solve for x. And remember, x just means the number of dogs. Divide both sides by 6, and that gets us to the number of dogs is equal to 20. Now, we could have just seen that from just looking at, to go from 6 to 60, clearly you just multiply it by 10, right? So we just do the same thing here. 2 times 10 gets us to 20. But if you get weird numbers or fractions or something where it's not quite so obvious what you need to multiply, the 6 by to get to whatever this would be, it'll always work if you cross multiply. Okay, I'm going to pause the video here. And we're going to jump to some actual problems, but this process right here, I cannot stress enough. This is your key to answering ratio questions, setting up these two different columns, matching up the numbers, and then cross multiplying. Okay, more problems as we go.